Well, seeing as we're hanging around and we got nothing better to do, why don't we just take in a little bit of news? You know, it's only apocalypse. World War III is round the corner, and we want to find out how we're going to die. Who's going to tell us? Piers Morgan and his girls. He loves his girls.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm joined by my pack now, the founder of Within Our Lifetime, Nerdeen Kiswani, and
Okay, we got the first one. Nerdeen Kiswani, the first of Piers Morgan's girls. She's a hard one, isn't she? Oh, look at her. She's tough. She's a... Who do you think... What side do you think she's on? Do you think she's on Palestine or Gaza? I think you'll find she's Palestinian, of course. Look at that scarf. So Palestinian, you couldn't help but to find it anywhere but Palestine. Well, actually, is there a Palestine anymore to find it in? I mean, it's getting very slim. It's very hard to find it. And even those colors, it's just suggesting, really, you know, the type of response about flags, etc., suggests that red, green, and black are going to be banned eventually. That'd be a terrible thing. But that's Nerdeen Kiswani. She's an interesting one if you want to know who she is. Like I say, she's Palestinian protest movement, and she is, I can't remember what, so let's see if I can find. Let's see. Nerdeen Kiswani, Within Our Lifetime, United for Palestine. So this is what the type of organization she goes with. It's a type of organization that is attacked by the Anti-Defamation League. So I'll probably like them quite a lot because the Anti-Defamation League are pretty nuts. If you learn about how they were started and what they've done in the past, you go, anybody who's Anti-Defamation League is against must be doing a good job. So there is something to be said. I think she's in her mid-20s, I would assume. I think she's about 24, 25 maybe. I'm not sure about that, but she's not older than that, I don't think. So they've chosen a young one as representative for the Palestinians.
broadcaster and journalist Emily Austin. Okay.
And here we go. Emily Austin, broadcaster and journalist. What does she journal? Oh, she must journal politics. Oh no, she's basketball correspondent. What is it for? Independent NBA broadcaster. She's classed as an American journalist, social media influencer, model, actress, and independent NBA broadcaster. And when the dancing Israelis were having it in the parking lot on September the 11th, 2001, she wasn't even 6 months old. Is it May 24th? She's born 2001. June, July, August, September. Oh no, she was 4 months old when September the 11th happened. That's interesting, isn't it? And she is, of course, she was in. Where was it? Alma Mater, Hofstra University, which I would assume is in, it's in Long Island. There you go, because she's from New York. She's a New Yorker. Now, if you've ever watched any of her NBA chat and her interviews, it's like watching Pasty Hour at Pasty Hotel. She looks like she's been chosen to be easy on the eyes, you could say. And most of the guys who she's speaking to know she doesn't have a clue about anything at all. So she's just been put in her place there, and she doesn't look. She was Austin, apparently her Wikipedia says, and I'm looking at her Wikipedia, yes I am, that's what I'm doing, I'm sorry about it. Austin was judge at Miss Universe 2022. Ooh, she's an ambassador to Puma. Ooh, and interestingly, and you must know this, she joined the Israeli mission to the UN, where she handles English communications and public relations. She claims that the UN is an anti-Semitic organization, and I think she's 22 now. So she's, again, a really young girl. These girls are pretty young. They will have been given lines through their own experience so far, but their lines will not have been properly formulated or solidified yet. What they say in 10 years' time will be a lot different to what they're saying now. Mark my words. That's always how it happens. Know the people who you're listening to and know what they do. Emily Austin is an interesting one Indeed, I find her interesting anyway. And Nerdeen Kiswani seems extremely interesting. One of them, as you will see, is better at arguing and debating than the other, and the other uses tools and tactics and tries to take over the interview. Yeah, her. Of course it is.
Emily, what did you make of that exchange I just had with Loki?
I just dislike how you ask a clear-cut question and the question never seems to be addressed on any of your interviews, quite frankly.
So, Piers, you're a terrible interviewer. I don't like how you're such a terrible interviewer because you ask questions and you never get a clear-cut answer. Because on any of your interviews, Piers, any of your interviews, that's what she's saying, start off at low.
It seems like they use the airtime as an opportunity to deny the question and just...
Oh, she's using the airtime as an opportunity to deny the question. That's the question that the Israelis have chosen to be their talking point and the focus of the attention. Remember, she's working at literally for the Israel within the UN. So she is working for Israel. Of course, she's a propagandist. She's been chosen because she's a broadcaster, because she's good looking, not because of her skills at debating or arguing, but those will get better over time. But at the end of the day, you know, they're po-faced. The Israeli media people who they put out on the front lines are po-faced killers.
Spread their own narrative, and it's pointless.
Spread their own narrative. Spread their own narrative. Come on. I mean, it's just the brass balls on either side when they're like, if they say, oh, the other side just comes on and doesn't answer questions and spreads their own narrative. That's exactly what happens in every single one of these interviews.
It's pointless. It's a one-sided conversation, and there's no actual conversation. It's, here's my question. Oh, but what about this pin?
Right.
What about this pin? What do you mean? What she says already doesn't make any sense, because isn't that from the other side? Isn't that that they say, look, you're wearing a Hamas pin. You're wearing a pin that says Hamas on it. Yeah. So is that a proper way to debate? Is it to accuse them of... Is a proper way to start any debate? Do you denounce these people who are acting terroristically? Do you denounce murderers? Do you denounce child rapists? Do you denounce all of these people? Is that the best way to start off?
I mean, Nerdeen, my problem with it was I've interviewed some pro-Palestinian voices in the last 2 weeks who were emphatic immediately. Let me make it clear. What happened on October the 7th was a disgusting terrorist attack and a bomb.
Here we go. What Piers Morgan is doing here is that condemn Hamas for what happened in the attacks. That line is failing now. It's failing because everybody's saying, why are you asking me to condemn someone who I don't agree with at all? You know, that keeps going around. He's finding another way to ask the same question without sounding like he's asking the question. So he's talking about the process of asking the question, not asking the question.
And then they go on to talk
about
happened on October the 7th. I've interviewed some pro-Palestinian voices in the last 2 weeks who were emphatic immediately. Let me make it clear. What happened on October the 7th was a disgusting terrorist attack, an abomination. And then they go on to talk about the plight of the Palestinian people and maybe the historical conflict and so on. And I have great respect for people that do that. I've got to say, I really struggle with anyone who just cannot have the humanity to start by saying what happened on October the 7th was appalling.
So he's saying there, I can't stand. He's not directing it at her. No, he's not directing it at Nerdeen Kiswani. No, he's saying, I don't like anybody who does this thing that I know you're about to do. I'm setting it up. The lady over here, Emily, has set me up for it. She's thrown the ball up for me to smash directly at you. And I know you're going to walk into the trap. It's a simple trap of logical fallacies.
An outrage. Do you feel it was?
I think Palestinians are tired of that being the starting point constantly, when right now there are 6,000 Palestinians who have been killed in Gaza, over 2,500 of them children, 33 mosques leveled, hospitals leveled. So we're tired of that being the main goal of the conversation.
It's not the main goal.
Well, this is, I mean, she is really well spoken, really concise. She quotes statistics straight away, and she's got it organized in her head what she needs to push, and she's not stupid. She's had practice at this, and she's obviously very good at this. But the problem is that she is going to have to skate round all of these roadblocks, all of these mines, all of these pasties that they put in the way.
It's the starting point of this war. Yeah, but hang on, it's the start.
That's amazing. It's the starting point of this war. They call it the Israel-Hamas war, so they can say that was the starting point of this war. But the starting point of this war was 1947, 1948. Those 2 years in history really did consolidate problems for the future, put them all in one area, and then 1967 made that a lot more worse, and then a lot worse, and then in the 80s and 90s everything went really chaotic. There was loads of meddling on either side. You know, there is I know that lots of people say, oh, Hamas is an Israeli construction, but that's a really easy way to term it. If you look at what people mean by that, what they're saying is that Israel were funding groups that were against the Palestinian groups in power at the time, so they pushed money towards whoever was against the left wing and socialist Palestinians. And that turned out later on to be what Hamas turned into. And then they were like, oh, we funded something bad, we put money into something bad. But that's what they do. They manage the situations as it goes along. But this isn't, the starting point isn't. Don't let anybody, Piers Morgan, Emily, anybody else, if they're trying to reset it, so the starting point of all of this friction and what led to this war was what happened in October, that is crazy talk. And what they're doing right now is crazy talk. Let's hear him do it again. He's being quite clear about what he's doing.
Of that being the main goal of the conversation.
It's not the main goal.
Part of it.
It's the starting point of this
starting
war.
point.
Yeah, but hang
starting
on.
point of this war.
It's the starting point of this war.
Outside
it's not the main goal of what I want the conversation to be.
The starting point was when 750,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed, were expelled from their homelands during the Nakba, which my grandparents fled Palestine because of.
So there you go. She's gone back to the Nakba. And that, you know, what he's doing there is going, okay. And Emily Austin is 22-year-old expert in basketball. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. She is saying, let's talk about the Nakba, but she's not going to really want to talk about the Nakba, is she? Not in proper terms.
The Nakba, because of the massacres and the rapes that they heard. So to me, that's the starting point. That's my experience.
Let's go with that for a minute. Let's start with the Nakba.
Let's go with that.
The only Nakba is the part that people forget to address. 1948, after the partition plan, the Jewish state called in the Arabs to live prosperously and peacefully in the land. But
wait, it's not fair. They say they called in the Arabs to come, live peacefully in the land. They ousted loads of families. Hundreds of thousands of people were displaced basically overnight. 1948. What was she talking about there? You know, They ousted loads of people. Loads of people got killed. They got thrown out of their home. They were made homeless, made refugees. They were at the point, had guns pointed at them. Were forced to leave their land, that their families, ancestral lands that their families had owned for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Given pittance and told at the same time, apparently, according to Emily Austin, who wouldn't know a history if it hit her in the face by the sounds of it. The Arabs could all come in. Yes, but if anybody knows anything about Jewish society and Israeli society and what the rules are on that, that means you're a guest. You're a guest, you're classed as a brother, and you're protected in all different sorts of ways, but that doesn't happen on the ground with people who are willing to take your land off you in 2 seconds. So the Nakba, they're willing to take their land off them and then willing to treat them with respect. Those two things, they do not go together. We know this, and we know it's awkward and uncomfortable. So the Nakba was bloody uncomfortable.
What happened the very next day, not even 24 hours later, is the alleged Nakba, where the Arab Leagues declared war on the Jewish state, that we just agreed to have our two-state solution. And what did they tell their people? Leave this
we, the Jewish people, just agreed to have the Jewish people two-state solution, and not the Arab two states, like not respect the Palestinians who were already in the land. I mean, the thing is, there could have been new Israeli settlements put up. There could have been another way to do that, but it was the ousting. The Nakba was terrible. It was complete and utter outrage. It's something within history that's never been properly addressed, and is a reason why all of this is happening. Don't be led astray by anybody. The Nakba is the root cause of nearly every single thing that's happened afterwards.
Say, let us get the land back. Let's ethnically cleanse the Jewish people. And once we defeat them in this war, you will come back to the land. So the only Nakba was a catastrophe that you guys, the Arab leagues, waged a war that you could not win. And that is why, I'm sorry, your grandparents had to leave their homes.
That's completely...
That is revisionism. That is amazing revisionism. And I mean, the problem is that she's a kid. This Emily girl is a kid. I know people can say, oh well, she's probably been to university and she's done a few things, and she's 22, you know. She's a kid. She's a kid. She ain't got no idea about the real extent of other person's pain, and you've got to put yourself into someone else's pain. Now, there's a lot to be. I'm trying to talk to everybody from all sides. I'm talking to Jewish people, and I want to talk to Palestinian people, and I want to talk to Arabs, and I want to talk to them all about this. But I don't want to talk lies. I want them to tell me the truth. And so far, I've had people who tell me the truth, and I tell you what, the truth is awful. The truth is awful on all sides. Everybody sees each other as lower all of the time, and it's one of the problems we have as humanity. We are constantly, we've got more right, we got more right, we got more right to exist, we got more right to exist, we're going to take the land, no, we're going to take the land. You know, this is like watching siblings fight.
Ahistorical. I don't represent the Arab League. I'm Palestinian, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Palestinians.
But why do you find it hard to just start, given this war, this latest war that's erupted, began with a terror attack on October the 7th. Why is it hard to not just say, that was terrible?
I don't see...
Because it's not the start, Piers. Because that makes it the start. That there's a reset. That's a propaganda reset that you're taking part in, and they don't want to take part in that because they're the other side. You know that. I mean, they know what's going on here. We know what's going. So we've just been, and so far, even though for you it's been longer because of me interrupting all of the time, which is what I do on NEWSPASTY. 2:57 in. We're 2 minutes and we're 57 seconds in, and so far they're still arguing about whether someone should condemn or not condemn, and also trying to reset it like this is the starting point of everything that's happened. Hamas didn't attack. Okay, what about the 75 years beforehand? Didn't happen. God, you just crying over spilt milk. And we gave you the option to come and live with us, and you could have brushed our hair and done our shoes, but instead you decided to take up insurgency and try and fight for your lands back. How dare you? As we do exactly the same thing.
You're asking Regev if he condemned the slaughter of innocent civilians.
Regev,
can you?
No, she can't, because she's the same woman who said every Zionist before they die should hear pop, pop before.
Right. Okay. I'm not sure about that. I've not seen that. I've had a little look around, but and Zionism is or don't conflate Zionism with anything. There's no right to pop someone, but still, Zionism is a political ideology, which is problematic if you want peace in the Middle East. Extremely problematic, and everybody knows it, but the Western media aren't allowed to talk about Zionism. And Mark Regev, who she mentioned, is one of the most disgusting humans I've ever experienced. I mean, there's only a few people who are that low on my list, and Mark Regev is definitely one of them. Definitely one of them. God, this is already so depressing.
Where they die. So she probably agrees with the massacre. So why would she condemn?
But look at this. She's now, Emily is now talking about the guest and Piers Morgan. Look how they're doing. They're talking about their guest. Oh, See, even I'm doing it now. Even I'm doing it because that's what Emily Austin and Piers Morgan are talking about Nerdeen Kiswani as though she's not there, as though she doesn't exist. And I'm sure you'll find this happens again and again, where they talk to each other about Nerdeen Kiswani while Nerdeen Kiswani watches. Do you know what that says about the psychology of Emily Austin, the easily led Pierce, and Nerdeen Kiswani, and what this whole dynamic is? In the center is someone who's an attack dog. She doesn't know much, so all she got is teeth. All she knows how to do is attack, and she's using Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan will fall for it all of the way because it's an easy option for him. She's offering the easy option. Let's examine this rat like she's a rat. That's how it looks to me as a psychological. Watch how they start to talk about her as though she's not there.
That's completely ahistorical. I don't represent the Arab League. I'm Palestinian, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Palestinians.
But why do you find it hard to just start, given this war,
Piers Morgan
this
directs
latest
her.
war that's erupted,
Emily will take over.
With a terror attack on October the 7th. Why is it hard to not just say, that was terrible?
I don't see you asking Regev if he condemned the slaughter of innocent civilians.
You can't do it, can you?
No, she can't because she...
You can't do it, can you? No, she can.
Who said every Zionist before they die should hear pop, pop before they die. So she probably agrees with the massacre. So why would she condemn them?
I think we're...
That is a really awkward pause where they're both looking towards Nerdeen for her to answer questions.
We're talking about you.
I'm speaking here, and
We're talking about you. Me and Piers are now interviewing you because I've taken over Piers Morgan's show and Piers Morgan is no longer in control.
I'm not interested in speaking to genocide deniers. The media is manufacturing...
And there you go. Nerdeen Kiswani does a job that doesn't help. I'm not interested in speaking to genocide deniers. That's a very nice way to get out of speaking with someone. This is the whole point. These conversations are awful. They make other people listening to you have this conversation awkward. They make people have to think, which is awkward. But not doing the same thing as many failed people have done before by ignoring the people who you're against. Nerdeen Kiswani could destroy Emily Austin in a battle of wit. Wit and candor, my friend. This girl, Kiswani, is a clever girl. She is much quicker, much sharper than Emily. But Emily is going to win because of tactics and support from the media. That's the way these things work.
Manufacturing consent for genocide against the Palestinian people, just like they did with the lie of the weapons of mass destruction.
It's a mistake.
That was used to justify the murder of over 1 million Iraqis.
Agreed.
And there's been many lies that have been repeated all over the news, including on your show, where CNN had to rescind, and even you said in subsequent interviews about the 40 beheaded babies. I haven't seen a single shred of evidence. I have not seen a single shred of evidence about these.
Well, there is definitely children and babies were definitely killed, and they've changed the line now. The line I keep hearing is, and a child was beheaded. I don't know if that, I've not seen any evidence of that either. But there was a massacre. There was a massacre. It included women and it included children because they are seen as enemy combatants because they're in occupied territory. And Hamas years ago decided that was fine. That will always cause you trouble when you're supposed to have the higher moral ground. You can stand on that higher moral ground, but it will also be with the accusation that dead babies lie around as you resist an occupation per se that causes dead babies on your side too, and makes you angry and makes you propelled to keep going along this route.
Accusations coming out.
I was actually deliberately misquoted.
Really interesting cut there. So she says something.
40 beheaded babies.
40 beheaded babies. Haven't seen a single shred of evidence
about these accusations coming out.
I was actually
Emily got quiet there. Emily's not saying anything about the 40 beheaded babies. She's been told not to speak probably about
deliberately
like
misquoted.
then Piers Morgan says, I've been deliberately misquoted, and then there's a cut. There's a censor. There's a moment where they censor Piers Morgan uncensored, because Piers Morgan is censored, of course. And it's not really, it should be called Piers Morgan uncoerced, and then not get coerced. But that's not what's happening, is it?
You raised an interesting point there about this issue of the beheaded babies from the October 7th terrorist attack. I was accused by Bassem Youssef of saying on air that 40 babies had been beheaded. I never said that. I said there were reports that 40 babies had been killed.
Yeah, he continued to propagate false reports that were clearly impossible to verify, and so should not have been put out by loads of. And I covered GB News saying it. What did GB News say? Do you remember what GB News said? This is a terrible day, a tragedy that they would have done this. You know, they took it as what happens all around the place. All of them report it. There's been reports of this. People at home who are gullible and susceptible to misinformation become misinformed, who are gullible to disinformation become disinformed, who are gullible to malinformation become malinformed by the mainstream media, by the way it presents its propaganda, its neocon, New World Order supporting propaganda.
And that some had been beheaded. That appears to have been borne out by other reporting. But
appears to be borne out and has been borne out is different things, Piers. You're still backtracking.
I haven't seen the full details of every single casualty, so I don't know for sure. I certainly never said 40 babies were beheaded. But that clip has gone around the world, and I've been bombarded with abuse.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, there's probably other clips which should have gone around the world where you should have been bombarded with. So maybe God is getting involved here, Piers. But this is a fact, is that he's spreading misinformation, disinformation like the rest of them, and they are being bombarded with hate, and people are going to get bombarded with hate, and it's only going to get worse. And then these people don't want to necessarily put their head out all of the time for Israel, when all you've got to defend you when you turn around is Emily Austin.
Based on an absolute lie.
I don't see a big difference between saying 40 babies were beheaded versus maybe, some. You don't think there's between 40 and some? Because at the same, that's the line that's being used to kill 6,000 Palestinians in Gaza right now.
Yes, good line. Nerdeen Kiswani. That is the line being used as propaganda. Maybe Emily's going to speak for the first time.
Well, let me ask Emily. All right, let me ask Emily this question. I've asked Nerdeen.
The kid's gone quiet.
Can she say she was horrified by what happened?
She wasn't.
And
again, okay. Look at this. They're talking about Nerdeen Kiswani together as though then she's not in the room. This is like a really weird thing that you see in certain media. So she's finishing speaking. I've gone back. Watch how this becomes some sort of, we're the ones talking in this room, and Nerdeen Kiswani is a guest we've invited on.
Let me ask. Here we go. All right, let me ask Emily this question. I've asked Nerdeen, can she say she was horrified by what happened on October?
She wasn't.
And she will not say that, which I think is very disappointing. Would you, in return, when you look at what's been happening in Gaza in the last 2 weeks, do you find that appalling, that the loss of young lives, of babies, of children, of women?
That's a fine response.
Innocent people who had nothing to do with the terror attacks.
Absolutely, 100%. Any death of innocent civilians should be condemned privately and publicly.
But this is a line. She is just repeating a line now. It does sound like she's repeating a line. This does not look like heartfelt. Yes, every innocent life should be this, that, the other.
I cannot believe I have to say that. So yes, every children that is being collateral damage.
What? But they're asking for her to say the same. They're asking for Nerdeen to say that she condemns them, and they're condemning her for not saying it, and then she's saying, I'm surprised I even have to say it. You should all know that I feel that way. Well, that's how the other side feel, but you don't treat them like humans.
Every woman that's becoming collateral damage, my heart aches for them.
Why can't you do that?
I think we all agree that the loss of innocent life is sad, but I believe that the loss of innocent life wouldn't be an issue.
It's okay when
Israel
it's the
didn't
Jews.
ethnically cleanse Palestine to begin with in 1948.
Well, they didn't, and that
is the source of this. To me,
but it did. Did she just say that? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm not sure I heard that.
So yes, every children that is being collateral damage, every woman that's becoming collateral damage, my heart aches for them.
Why can't you do that?
I think we all agree that the loss of innocent life is sad, but I believe that the loss of innocent life wouldn't be an issue.
It's okay when
Israel
it's the
didn't
Jews.
ethnically cleanse Palestine to begin with in 1948.
Well, they didn't, and
she did say, well, they did, didn't she? Did she just say that?
But I believe that the loss of innocent life wouldn't be an issue.
It's okay when
Israel
it's the
didn't
Jews.
ethnically cleanse Palestine to begin with in 1948.
Well, they didn't, and
that is the source of this. To me, I go to the source of the issue. Cleanse Palestine to begin with in 1948.
Well, they didn't, and
that is the source of this. To me, I go to the source of the issue.
I'm not sure what she said. It sounded like she said yes, they did, but I don't know.
But had you asked me, okay, but Nerdeen,
this is not the beginning. It is true, and they always try and do. I think it's like another reset. Let's reset this, and now it's a war about this, and not a war about the occupation of Palestine, and all so on and so on. Of course, this is all tactics, and Piers Morgan is a frontline pawn on this.
Ask me.
That's not the starting point.
Why don't you ask me what do I think of that? You got a lot of preconceived views of what you think I think.
Because she's not the presenter, Piers, but you're not acting like it's a show because your other guest and you are ganging up on her, and then you're asking Nerdeen to ask you the questions. This doesn't even make sense anymore as a format.
I agree with you. I think the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in 1948...
Piers Morgan asking himself questions.
The Arab Leagues for declaring war on the solution.
What? For declaring war, you can thank the Arab League because then they deserve everything. Whatever the Palestinians got after that was all fine because of the Arab League, even though the Palestinians aren't necessarily of those countries, are they? They're of their own country, so they're not Egyptians, and they're not things. So they didn't. The Arab League make their decisions based on their own national interests, not on Palestine's national interests. Hence, 1967 as well, and it goes so bad. I mean, it went so badly. The Egyptians lost their air force nearly straight away, and that was the end of it. That was the end of it. They were doomed afterwards.
Myriad people at fault in the next 70 years.
We were ethnically cleansed from our land. It's not like Jewish people were ethnically cleansed from the land of Palestine.
Why?
They colonized it from other.
What was the catalyst for you being? So she's admitting. Emily is admitting that there's a post she's showing there. That Emily is admitting that they were ethnically cleansed. This is just bizarre. This is why you shouldn't put a 22-year-old out as your main communications person, like the UN and the Israelis are doing, and the are doing here with this expert on basketball. And she's going for a 3-pointer. Oh, it's another miss. It's a shame she's only 5 foot tall. Why? But she's admitting that there was they were ethnically cleansed. How does that help? How does that look? Does this normally happen that Israelis admit that they ethnically cleansed the Palestinian? I got to hear it again because keep hearing it. Keep thinking, no, she can't possibly be admitting that they Why did we ethnically cleanse? Why though? Why? Okay, Emily. Why did you ethnically cleanse?
1948 is the root cause of all of this.
Well, you can thank the Arab Leagues for declaring war on the solution.
There are myriad people at fault in the next 70 years.
They did not declare war in 1948.
It's not like Jewish people were.
In 1948, the Arab Leagues did not declare a war outright and go and get in their tanks and start an attack. They did not do that. They actually turned away from the whole thing and left it until they were militarily strong enough to try and take on this new state of Israel. And that was and what didn't happen until 1967. Now, you can imagine how many arms the Israelis had given to them by Western powers, because the World War II and disarmament had just happened. So there's loads of guns and loads of bombs and everything just hanging around, and they were just giving them weapons galore, giving them in like help in creating infrastructure. So I mean, it's not like the Arabs could actually go and attack. They had been busy helping the British, fighting alongside Israelis against the Nazis. That's what they were doing. And then, of course, everything turned on them. Their lands were taken, and etc., etc.
Ethnically cleansed from the land of Palestine. They colonized it from other.
Why? What is the catalyst? What is the catalyst for them? What is the catalyst for someone being ethnically cleansed, Emily? What is the acceptable catalyst?
I'm actually discussing with him. I refuse to speak to genocide denier. I refuse to speak to genocide denier.
It's not a genocide denier.
Why they were ethnically cleansed? Why were you ethnically cleansed, though? Why, though? Why? Is it because you didn't agree with us? Is it because you didn't agree with our solutions? Is it because you didn't agree with what we wanted to do, which was make you homeless? And is that why you were ethnically cleansed? Because that seems like a fine reason for me to ethnically cleanse you. You don't want to leave your house. You don't want to leave your land. You're going to get ethnically cleansed. And afterwards, you're going to say, when you complain, yes, but why were you? You wouldn't move out. You were ethnically cleansed because you wouldn't be ethnically cleansed. Do that loop. You had to leave your land because you wouldn't leave your land. And then because you wanted your land back, we have to attack you because you wouldn't leave your land and we had to attack you. There you go. So ethnically cleansed. Yeah. It sounds like the Israeli, this is amazing because of her position, really. This is why it doesn't make any sense for me. Like trying to work out, she's the Israel's UN mission. She's joined Israel's UN mission, and she's here admitting that Israel ethnically cleansed the Palestinian people. I'm not sure. Have I just missed that? Is it? I'm confused.
She's not.
Do you know the definition of a genocide?
No, I do know the definition of a genocide. Gaza currently is a concentration camp.
No, it is
because
not.
The Palestinians.
You think Hamas wages genocide? No,
it's not.
I believe that.
Gaza is currently a concentration camp. I mean, if you just the style of it has changed. I mean, it is just terrible. What is going on there is just terrible. I really wish that there could be some sort of peace. Listen, I gotta say something very clearly here. About my belief of what's going on over there. I think it's quite simple and extremely complicated, and a few nuances make the situation even more complex. But I think the Palestinians are occupied by the Israelis and the Gazans are occupied by Hamas. So, and I think that the Israelis are occupied by the Israeli political class. The Israeli political class are completely detached from Israelis and fund things that are completely wanting, like to try and spur on the background of or the narrative for messianic prophecy. So far removed from reality. And the Gazan people only ended up voting in Hamas because things got worse and worse for them in the 80s and 90s until the point when they were like, okay, please just give us the people with guns. And now they're occupied by Hamas while being occupied by Israel, and Israel are occupied by Israel's political class. That's so complicated and so nuanced, but you've got to understand the Palestinian people and the Israeli people are both victims in this whole thing. You know, they both being taken advantage of by the people who rule them. That has to be understood. Ethnically cleansing, genocide. Do it to each other, and we do it to ourselves, don't we?
Look at the numbers. Look at the Palestinians who have been killed.
Hamas's stated
We're not here to talk about any
is to eradicate the Jewish people.
Zionism's stated purpose is to completely take back the lands of Israel and the Levant from river to sea and everything in between. It's all relativism, isn't it? It's all whataboutism. It's all the same. It's all comparisons. And none of that will get us to a solution, and we need a solution. The people on the ground need a solution. None of those solutions are going to come while we're all using relativism.
It's their stated purpose.
The first thing that we should be fighting
that's literally
is for
genocide.
Palestinians to be returned home to their homeland.
Both sides are doing it.
Hamas's stated purpose is literally the definition of genocide. It's wiping out people based on their ethnicity.
The hostages who were released had otherwise to say.
Oh, the 2 out of 250. Let's applaud Hamas. You can't. Okay.
The hostages that Israel didn't even want to take to begin with. They didn't even want to take them back.
But they did take them. The Palestinians need to divorce
as they bomb Gaza, risking their own hostages.
I'm going to keep speaking.
They don't care about killing them.
Palestine needs to be liberated from Hamas, because when your governing body is a terrorist organization, that is the root of the problem.
See, here we go. That is the root of the problem, but that only the problem because they were occupied. So they're being occupied by people who are defending themselves from an occupier, and there's many roots. There's not just one root to this problem. Everybody's looking for the one solution, the single solution. I'm sure many people can use loads of different words for what that solution could be. Both of these sides have, like the extremes of them, have chosen to exterminate the other side and genocide and all of the rest of it. So, if you both are at each other doing that, it's only going to end in more deaths, and then people arguing about each side doing bad things, killing bad people.
Problem. Not the alleged ethnic cleansing.
The ethnic cleansing of Palestine happened decades before Hamas was even created.
Let me ask you a question. Do you
what exactly happened? I think she has it. Let's see it again.
Well, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine happened decades before Hamas was even created.
Let me ask you a question.
I think Emily might be honestly asking. Yes, but what exactly happened? I know that I had to ask before, but I probably should now, seeing as I'm an envoy or whatnot for. I'm on the mission for Israel in the UN. I should probably. What did happen in 1948? What happened? What was the next? Oh, really? Oh. Right. Okay. So you say I didn't get the 3-pointer.
Do you think that Hamas should stay in power in Gaza?
I'm not here to talk about political organizations. No, I don't care about these questions because my people are being ethnically cleansed. Because I see the faces of 2,500 Palestinian children on social media every day, charred, mutilated.
Both of them. Listen to it. My people are being killed. 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 What does not help in this situation? Saying my people are being killed over and over again when it's literally never worked. Not one point in the past how many years have anything changed because people are being killed? Saying it over and over again isn't going to help. We got to say different things. We got to do different things. We can't keep using pasty logic. We can't keep using this stupid, completely fallacy after fallacy after fallacy constantly to try and sort out hit the same nail over and over again with our foreheads.
Having chemical weapons against them. So this is going to be my priority on this show, just like any Palestinian around the world is speaking up for our cause.
You will also
stop using babies as human shields. Stop
it's
making
the most densely populated region.
So Emily is no longer. It's turned into a mad shouting match. Nerdeen is realizing that she is not part of the conversation between Piers Morgan and Emily, and that she is constantly just here to condemn Hamas. She isn't part of Hamas as a political organization. Whether she supports them protecting or whatever they're doing for Palestinians on the ground is irrelevant. because they're just they're painting her, tarring her as a mess, so she can't talk about it. They're not even speaking to her like she's human at times. They're speaking to each other as though she's not in the room, like she's a little child, not like she's not human, like she's a little child. And then it's going out of control. Piers Morgan isn't trying to get control because he likes the shouting. Uncensored means unruly, and there's a lot of it things. Uncensored actually means Piers Morgan uncensored. It's actually Piers Morgan unruly. They're now shouting. They lost control, so Nerdeen's having a go, and this pancake of a woman she got a flat brain syndrome. Emily is just completely and utterly lost it. Now is talking to the camera. She can't talk. Nerdeen won't discuss with her because she's saying you can't even converse with someone who doesn't see a problem with someone being ethnically people being ethnically cleansed, and then complains about the other side wanting to ethnically cleanse them. You can't have a conversation with a person like this. This woman here is 22 years old. She's a social media influencer. And she's an MBA journalist who I don't think has played a moment of basketball in her life. So, the idea that she is well versed and she is actually educated enough and she is skilled enough to be in this situation is you can see the output you get from that input, the crap you put in, by her currently looking at the camera herself and saying stuff to the camera, not to Piers, not to Nerdeen. She's just saying stuff to Hamas directly because she's lost the ability to be able to argue, because this other Nerdeen's a bit too skilled, and Piers Morgan has just used Emily as a tool to attack Nerdeen.
In the world.
Yeah, but you will also know
2.3 million Palestinians weapons against them. So this is going to be my priority
so
on
Nerdeen's
the show.
speaking,
just like any Palestinian around the world is speaking up for our cause.
You will also
stop using babies as human shields. Stop.
So Piers just gives up.
In the world.
Yeah, but you will also know
2.3 million Palestinians. Half of them are homeless.
So Piers Morgan's trying to talk to Nerdeen. Nerdeen's continued to speak, and Emily was speaking over them both and shouting over them both. This is Piers Morgan Unruly.
Let me respond to you.
This is a ridiculous argument.
My question is whether you think it is good for the Palestinian people that Hamas stay in charge, given the scale of the terror attacks they carried out.
Come on, that's ridiculous.
Inevitable responses.
That's ridiculous.
Israel, with the
that's ridiculous.
Loss of Palestinian lives.
It's another way. It's another way to say, do you condemn Hamas by saying that the Palestinian people shouldn't be represented by Hamas, and so forth? You condemn them. This is still the same tool. They started off. This is their one tool. Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? But they're saying it in loads of different ways, over and over again. All they're saying is, do you condemn Hamas? And they call it the Israel-Hamas war. And it started when Hamas attacked. And it was no problem before. Everybody was living in peace and was happy.
But now hundreds of thousands of Palestinians out of the north of Gaza into the south. And who knows what's going to happen. The devastation to Gaza and to Gazan people has been unbelievable, and yet because
they're being bombed by Israel and they're being blockaded and have been for years. Piers Morgan is being extremely disingenuous here. I mean, I'm not sure how much more disingenuous you can get, but that is Piers Morgan. He is pretty disingenuous most of the time.
Highly predictable once Hamas decided to carry out the terror attack on the scale they did. I simply ask you, do you think that's a good thing for Palestine?
Do you think that's a good thing? I'm asking you, do you think that horrific situation I just mapped out is a good thing for Palestine? And if you answer no, that means that you're condemning Hamas. Ha ha.
Predictable that there will continue to be resistance to oppression as long as apartheid,
yes, there will be. Of
occupation,
course,
ethnic cleansing, genocide continues to exist. Whether Hamas exists or not is an irrelevant question, because as long as oppression against the Palestinian
whatever you say about this woman, Nerdeen's put in an amazing performance here, because whether you think that she's guilty of stuff. I mean, the Anti-Defamation League have said some stuff about her. They've said a few things. Let me see. If I can find the little page I had open on that, because the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, they said they've written up a little bit of a portfolio on her, and some of the things they were saying about Hollywood, they were saying, look, Kiswani shared a quote in 2013 on Facebook that included, despite the almost total control of the major media conglomerates by global Zionism, the advocates of pro-Palestine are winning the war on social media, calling for the shunning of Zionists. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, that's what the ADL do. They push for Zionism, which is like political Judaism, which is detached from Judaism, and is causing a hell of a lot of problem in the world, I have to say. You know, if you go back in time, you'd see it as well. Like a lot of the problems in the Middle East are caused by this idea of, oh, we need to take it all because that's what is within our religion. And that's, I mean, when it becomes political, then that ideology is almost unstoppable. But Nerdeen here, she's putting in a fantastic performance. She is under fire all the time, so she's used to this sort of stuff. She's got a hostile media organizations against her, and she's been given an opportunity to speak, and this girl is taking it. She is winning the battle here, and she is not falling for any of the tricks, and she's done extremely well at battling them. Extremely well. I'm very, very impressed by this young lady. Very impressed.
How can you end that oppression as you see it? And many would agree with you.
Why don't we address the oppression first? She called Israel an apartheid state. So I'd like to just define what apartheid is. It is segregation, like what South Africa is facing. But the alleged apartheid is because Israel set up security measures.
So apartheid is segregation. Well, it's a little bit more than that. She just said apartheid is segregation. Let's do the thing that we should always do. Let's go look at the supposed what we could call the dictionary definition of apartheid, and let's start with there, because she said segregation. That's one part of apartheid. Living under apartheid, segregation on the grounds other than race. There you go. So there's a little bit extra. It's not just segregation, isn't it? It's a segregation of a certain people who live within your population, a policy or system of segregation. So it's not just segregation, but it's a policy. It's systematic segregation. So it's not just segregation, it's systematic or discrimination on grounds of race. Segregation on grounds other than race is gender apartheid, but it's on the grounds of race. And it is true. That is what, so in South Africa, a policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race. And that is what we see. So a dictionary definition, what we're seeing with the Palestinian people and how the Israelis treat them is apartheid.
After the numerous bus bombings in 2000 and set up checkpoints, which they...
Well, there's a lot that preceded the bus bombings, and here we go. Whataboutism, you know, who was worse? Well, the Israelis were doing, then you had the massacre in the mosque, and you had all of the other things that happened. There's a load of history there, but they always do this. They go to the bit of history that backs up their narrative, and then they push it forward. That's on both sides. That's the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. They look for the narratives that suit them and ignore all the ones that are uncomfortable. That's not how you solve a complicated situation. You either have to forgive everything or you have to examine it all.
Got very insulted by, but it's the same way that airports now require security after 9/11, reasonably so. So it is taking security precautions. Secondly, we have 3 Arabs, and if I'm not mistaken, Muslims currently sitting in the Knesset.
Wait a minute.
Does that sound like insulted by? But it's the same way that airports now require security after 9/11.
So in the same way that airports now require security after 9/11, the Israelis need to create an apartheid state. That is not exactly the same, Emily. Airports, security, and apartheid states, they don't have the same, like, you know, that's not the same thing. They're not the same things. That's not right. And comparing it to it shows that they see them as under citizens, as less than.
11, reasonably so. So it is taking security precautions. Secondly, we have 3 Arabs, and if I'm not mistaken, Muslims currently sitting in the Knesset. Does that sound like apartheid?
Yeah, but I mean, come on, there's 3 in the Knesset, and there should be a lot more, and there should be a lot more people in the lands who had been pushed out. So if the Nakba hadn't have happened, there may have been a lot more Muslims in the Knesset, but the Knesset wouldn't have existed with it.
Let me quote the Israeli defense minister and how they view Palestinians. He said that we are fighting against human animals, that our soldiers will not be accountable for anything. There will be no fuel, no food, no water, and Gaza will cease to exist. This is what Yoav Gallant, the Israeli defense minister, has said. This is how they refer to Palestinians.
I think one of the big problems, one of the big problems leading up to this has been...
That's not apartheid. That's
beyond let me just say what I think.
That's the language of ethnic cleansing and genocide.
Yeah, language of ethnic cleansing and genocide. But as Emily says, but why were you ethnically cleansed? But why? Why were you ethnically cleansed, though, you rats?
Beyond apartheid.
Let me make the point I want to make, which is I think one of the problems leading up to this
Unbelievable.
is that Benjamin Netanyahu, for political expediency to remain in power, has packed his cabinet with a bunch of right-wing headbangers whose rhetoric...
I'm not going to call him Bibi, I'm going to call him Boo-Boo. But this is all Boo-Boo Netanyahu. This is all... political Judaism happening, this disconnected from Israeli people. And I mean, the Israeli people, I don't know how they even get their brains back. I mean, a lot of, can you imagine? The reality is you can't look at all Israeli citizens as being guilty. They live in a land that they believe should be theirs. That's a lot of them are just living there, trying to live their best lives, and there's a load of other ones who are antagonizing the situation really badly. You can't be bundling them all together, because some people are just born, brought up, taught a certain way, and so think a certain way. The same way that Israel feels about the situations in Gaza, where people kids are brought up to hate Jews and etc. Well, that happens all over the place, and there's a big problem with that. And until that changes, we're not going to see a change on the ground at all. Change happens by people speaking and getting over differences, not by saying our differences are on religious grounds and we're right and you're wrong.
Actually was incredibly incendiary and incredibly unhelpful. So I do think that. Actually.
And you know what? Even if you're right, unfortunately, the narrative that it's about the land,
that was
I'm sorry,
funny.
Incredibly incendiary and incredibly has packed his cabinet with a bunch of right-wing headbangers whose rhetoric actually was incredibly incendiary and incredibly unhelpful. So I do think that.
So I do think that, but I still shake Bibi's hand. Boo-boo.
The narrative that it's about the land, I'm sorry, the Hebron massacres in 1927,
there you go, what?
That was not about Israel. It is about the murder of Jews all over the world. Now,
wait, but there were loads of attacks. There was loads of literally Zionist attacks on British outposts, killing British and Palestinian people all through that time. She's talking about, she picks and chooses. Oh, look when this bad thing happened to us. Ignore all of the rest. Look when this other bad thing happened to us. Ignore all the rest. Why are we ignoring all the rest? Because I'm 22 years old, and if you don't, I'm in trouble. No, but I want to talk about all of the other things. Well, they didn't exist, did they? Well, they did. You ethnically cleansed us. Yes, but why were you ethnically cleansed? You ethnically cleansed because you're a lesser people, weren't you? And you deserve to be ethnically cleansed. I don't think having Emily as a member of Israel's envoy to the UN is a good idea. I think she might be slightly brain fucked.
National Jihad Day that I had to worry about being in Manhattan last Friday was not about
the day where we had a protest where thousands of New Yorkers came out. That's not a national day of jihad. You're talking about a national day of jihad.
Ask you both.
She's afraid for her life. Who was killed in America? Who was killed? A 6-year-old Palestinian boy.
And
yeah. A 6-year-old Palestinian boy was stabbed to death, and this woman says she's scared for her life. Now, again, Emily is pretending She's putting on a pretense there. It doesn't work very well when you've got a subjugated people suffering under an apartheid regime in front of you. You can't do that, Emily. You're too used to talking to all them handsome black basketball players who all treat you nicely and don't question anything at all, aren't you? But now you're up front for Israel in the UN and you're saying some crap, and you're not on the same level at all. You've got a long time before you get up to Nadine's level.
Chicago,
you want to compare numbers?
That was appalling. It was appalling.
26 times.
Yeah, Nadine,
and you're talking about being afraid for your life. I'm constantly afraid for my life as a Palestinian.
I can say to those examples you just gave, they are appalling. Appalling. But I also find it.
But you're talking to her like she's a child.
Just take a moment to say,
here we go. Condemn
to the people in Israel on October the 7th was also appalling.
But it's become a point now where it really, that is the thing that obviously Edelman PR and stuff will be doing research on this and will be feeding this through to all of the organizations such as these that use such PR firms, and they'll be looking at it and they'll be saying, right, this thing really works. They're getting them to condemn Hamas, because this has been 11 minutes of Piers Morgan trying to find different ways to get Nerdeen to condemn Hamas directly, like she's a member of Hamas. As soon as someone condemns Hamas, then they're saying, I agree with the other side. Or they're saying, if they don't, they're saying, I agree with Hamas. And that's the way they built it. But it's not true. It's a fallacy, and it's being built like that. And he's still going. After 11 minutes, it's still the trick. That's the trick that Piers Morgan is doing. Do you condemn Hamas? If you don't, you're evil, and we're not going to listen to you. Not, do you condemn these people? Well, of course I do, but you won't let me start. You won't stop wanting me to condemn it because you have no other talking points, because otherwise you'd have to have this 22-year-old Israeli American who has zero clue about the real world commenting on why did you get ethnically cleansed? Oh, you deserved it though, didn't you? You deserved it.
It came out of her mouth. She wants the Zionists dead, so how is she supposed to condemn it?
It would not have happened had Israel not initiated this, and you know this from the beginning. I think we always need
Israel did nothing that warranted what happened on October the 7th. Nothing.
Israel?
Nothing.
Whoa, yeah. It's a terrible terrorist attack, but Israel have done so much more than you can even imagine. There's things that you don't even know that they've been getting up to. It's trying to find out what they're guilty of against, like, crimes against humanity. There's loads of them. Crimes against humanity. Children burnt to death by rockets. It's just they're not flying in and shooting them directly. They're letting the rocket fly straight towards, and they just got a better standard of technology. That's the difference. One is doing it by hand. The other is doing it by hand from 100, 200, 300 miles away.
Attack. It's like saying that America brought 9/11 on itself. I remember people...
Wow, America, 9/11, bringing it on itself. P.S. You want to be careful there, because I think you'll find a lot of people believe America literally brought 9/11 on itself. Like, the American authorities seem to help it along quite a lot. Help with Israel and Saudi Arabia there too. I don't think you want to go into that, Piers. I don't think you want to go into that.
Saying that in the streets afterwards.
I think she wants to go back in time and yell at the United Nations for
again, and so Emily's again talking like Nadine's not there to Piers.
Repellent to me. A terror attack
well,
is a
Piers
terror
tells her
attack
off.
Is a terror attack. What Hamas did that day was unprecedented.
Why are you not condemning it? Why are you not condemning it?
No army.
Has to say
Anything that Palestinians do to defend themselves will always be categorized as a terrorist attack, because this...
when you kill women and children, that doesn't help your cause at all. So this is why it works so well, because even I, who I've been from a left-wing family, socialist, and my dad was a steel worker. My mum worked in the socialized medicine of the NHS, washing test tubes and stuff. Later on, worked as a traffic warden for years. But they believe in. I would say that they believed in Gazans and the Palestinians' right to return home and stuff like that. I was brought up with that feeling, brought up with it all around me. But if you say anything we do to fight against the evil oppressor is going to be seen as bad, and that is defending dead kids, the murder of children and the murder of women and the murder of obviously not enemy combatants, then of course it's going to be bad. It's going to give you next. So this is where this side falls down. It's pretty obvious why it's a tool they use and wield so thoroughly and so well and so often. It's why Piers Morgan has used it the entire time and used it all through the last interviews, all different ways to condemn Hamas.
This is the position that the world has put us in.
Right,
I'm
final
not
point
responding to
Emma.
your questions.
I have a question. When was the last time Palestine had full sovereignty over the land?
I have a question. When did we take over Palestine again?
Or even a year that Palestine had their own
I'm not going to engage with genocide deniers. If you want to make a point, you can say that.
She wants to be a child. How are you in a
She wants to be a child. She is. Listen, Emily is such a child throughout all of this. She's been unable, and we're in response. I think she knows that, and so now she's projecting a little bit out. Piers Morgan is lost control again, and Emily's trying to get Piers to do things, and other people. This is amazing. This is amazing.
Attorney, God. Can you ask her, when did Palestine have full sovereignty over the land?
When did Palestine have full sovereignty?
When did full sovereignty? And I see that you're taking your talking points from her.
Well,
yeah, there you go. You just walked into that, Piers. It's so terrible. You're all so terrible. You're such a bunch of fuckwits.
You don't want to talk to me.
It's a question.
He has to do.
You have to answer
it. Do
it.
you want to answer me?
It's a question.
And stop being a child? If you have a Jew in court, are you not going to represent them as an attorney?
This has nothing to do with Jewish people.
No, it does.
We actually have Jewish people protesting on the streets of New York City.
Yeah, but hang on.
Why? Yeah, because Hamas. Yes, it does. And there you go. That's it. What Emily's doing here is for that reason. You hear that?
Present them as an attorney.
This has nothing to do with Jewish people.
No, it does.
We actually have Jewish people protesting.
It does, because Hamas charter says so, and you're defending Hamas. So she said that basically there's going to be resistance against occupation. She's not defending Hamas. She's not Hamas. She's saying there's going to be resistance to this brutal occupation that's been going on for years. And she's saying, well, you do feel this way because it's in the Hamas charter and you're defending Hamas. Emily's openly saying the line when she shouldn't. Apparently, she should be quiet about it. She should be careful. She shouldn't say it out loud like that. Everybody will find out that it's a trick.
Of Palestine.
Okay, let's not all shout over each other, but it has everything to do with Jewish people.
You're defending Hamas, who are calling for a genocide of the Jewish people. That's what the line is for every single Palestinian supporter who comes on.
But when Hamas's stated intent is to wipe Jewish people off the face of the earth.
I'm not the spokesperson of Hamas.
No, but you should be able to say that's wrong.
This conversation, that's all you're talking about.
Yeah, that's all you're talking about because you're trying to smear her as Hamas. You want to smear her as Hamas. That's what the whole point is of this exercise.
No, I'm here to flip the
You're
narrative.
Defending them. You're defending them. No way. We're all sitting here
to the tune of $10 million a day,
Go on.
$3 billion a year, and they're asking for an additional $14 billion in aid.
Okay.
The bombs that are being manufactured by U.S. companies are what's being dropped on Gaza. The world is watching a genocide happening and is not doing anything about it. So the most important thing for me to do right now is to stop this genocide. And questions about Hamas are not going to do that. It's condemning the genocide of the Palestinian people and condemning the UK and U.S. government that we live under, that I pay taxes to, that are killing Palestinian people every day. And the UN already said that Gaza would be unlivable by 2020. The UN had already said that most of the hospitals in Gaza, at least 2/3 of the healthcare facilities, are not being able to provide. Are not able to.
I think it's wrong.
So it's not just the airstrikes and the missiles that are going to kill people. The siege and blockade has been.
So, Piers Morgan, you think it's wrong? Are you going to condemn those actions and are you going to condemn those governments? Are you going to condemn those actions? Are you going to condemn it as terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism? Are you going to condemn it as that? I don't think you are.
Killing people.
You should be able,
Nerdeen,
you should be able to say that is all wrong, which I believe it is wrong. And you should also be able to say that what happened on October the 7th was wrong. a human being who cares equally about the lives of all human beings would be able to say that
I do care about the lives of all human beings equally, and that's why exactly I believe that in order to preserve human life, you must end the siege on Gaza, you must end the blockade, you must end the settler colonization of Palestine.
Listen.
She's done really well. Now, I found it hard to argue with anything she was saying there, and the way she was saying was passionate. Emily's gone into herself, and Piers is trying to calm the situation down because they've got to end it soon.
Free Palestine from Hamas.
It's a passionate debate, and I understand why emotions run high. I appreciate you both coming in. Thank you very much indeed. Come back. Let's continue the debate. You only get to peace in these things. I can promise you by thrashing these things out. He's right about this. People that hate each other have to come together, and they have to try. And
Emily isn't doing it, and Nerdeen isn't.
Never get to peace.
Neither of these girls here are doing that. This generation, this next generation, on both sides have been completely brainwashed to keep the situation going. They don't even know. They don't even know because they won't know until they're much older. And they look back and they say, "We were part of the same system. It's the same system that oppresses each other."
70 years this has been going on. 70 years.
You need justice to get peace.
You need justice, and you need compromise, and you need both sides to acknowledge when bad things happen, you can say that is unacceptable. On October the 7th, if any tiny part of you says that was acceptable, or there's a reason for it, I can't have that. But thank you for coming in.
But you can't have that, but it doesn't mean it's not true, Piers. It just means it's unpopular. For me, I have to say that I watched a video of Shani Luke in the back of the van, surrounded by the unblurred version, surrounded by grown men of Hamas who were hitting her, spitting on her. It looked like her arms and legs were broken. I can't even describe like the feeling I had about it. And that made me sick to the stomach of Hamas. Like that sort of culture existing, and made me see that, yeah, there's a problem. But it's not as simple, knowing all of the rest of it, it's not as simple as they want to portray it as. Israel is occupying parts of Palestine. Part of Palestine is being occupied by Hamas. Hamas fighting against the Israeli people en masse, and the Israeli political class are causing that to continue and causing for a continuation of war. It is true that the only way out of this is if people actually discuss and talk about it and admit what's really going on. Piers Morgan is being disingenuous with what he's saying. As always,
I appreciate it. Thank you both very much indeed.
There's a load of pasty hanging around. Pasty Morgan. What can you do about him, eh? I suppose he's pretty entertaining, though, isn't he? He puts on a good show. Well done. Well done.